The late afternoon sun hammered Grant Park, every inch of grass wilting under the sticky heat. On days like this, Chicago shimmered, the city's relentless hum swallowing up even the cries of the desperate. Unless you really listened. Beyond the baseball diamonds, just past a battered old bench scorched by years of sun, a rusted fence sagged into the earth, barely upright. Behind that fence, the world had already turned its back. A German shepherd, Greta, lay wedged beneath the sagging metal. Her fur was knotted and clumped with mud, streaked red at her hind leg where the fence had bitten deep. Every breath came with a jagged rattle, sides heaving, tongue lolling as she tried to pull free. Her eyes were dull but searching. At her side, a gangly puppy, Max, pressed himself close, nuzzling and whining, licking Greta's torn ear. Max's eyes were round with terror. His little cries cut through the drone of traffic and laughter. Crowds walked past, cell phones glued to their ears, bags bouncing on their shoulders. A couple in tennis whites wrinkled their noses, nudged each other, and hurried on. A delivery driver shouted, "Hey, get out of there!" And Greta flinched, tail curling under her body. Nobody stopped. Some kids threw pebbles from the curb. The world just moved on. Emily, 16, strode across the grass, backpack bouncing. Her sneakers left dark, wet spots behind her. She had that look, hoodie zipped up tight even in the heat, eyes scanning the sidewalk, hoping not to be seen. She'd just finished her shift at a diner on Michigan Ave, pockets stuffed with crumpled bills and the ache of a long, thankless day. She would have kept walking too if she hadn't heard the high, desperate yelping, thin but sharp enough to slice right through the summer haze. She stopped dead, something seizing inside her. For a split second, the sounds twisted into memory. Her father's voice shouting in the hallway, a door slamming, the muffled sobs that followed. That old pain pressed against her chest, sharp as ever. Emily shook her head and focused. Just a scared dog, that's all. But then she saw them. The mother dog pinned under twisted iron, the little pup pawing frantically at her side. Greta raised her head, as if to shield Max with her own battered body. The puppy turned, and not knowing what else to do, rushed at Emily, nipping her sleeve, tugging with all his tiny might. He whimpered, eyes pleading, "Please help!" Emily's heart hammered. She'd always wanted a pet, always begged, but her mother never allowed it. Too busy, too afraid, too tired. Big dogs scared her. Still, she couldn't just walk away. Not now, not again. Emily crouched, the world blurring around her. Her hands shook as she reached for the fence. Greta's lip curled, a warning, but her eyes, dark and wild, were pleading. Emily swallowed, ignored the old voice in her head that said she was weak, that she'd mess it up. With trembling fingers, she reached through the bars, letting Max lick her hand. She flinched at first, but the pup's tongue was warm and frantic, desperate for kindness. Emily tried to lift the fence. It barely budged. Greta let out a yelp so raw it echoed down the sidewalk. Emily pulled back, wiping her forehead with her sleeve, fighting panic. Her mind spun. What do I do? What if I make it worse? She looked around. No one had stopped. No one even seemed to notice. The world just kept moving, and she was alone with these dogs, just as she'd been alone when her father walked out. She took a shaky breath. Max nuzzled her knee, whimpering, pressing close as if he could sense the storm inside her. Emily blinked hard, a mix of fear and fierce resolve boiling up. She stood and called out, voice shaking, "Please, somebody help! She's stuck!" But people only glanced over, then away. Some pretended not to hear at all. Emily's legs felt like jelly, but she refused to leave. Max pawed at her again, his trust absolute, as if he believed she was the only hope left in the world. Greta's eyes found hers, a battered, silent plea. Emily, for the first time in her life, reached past her own fear and did something reckless. She knelt, touched Greta's head and whispered, "I'm here, I'm not leaving you." That's when a runner slowed nearby. A woman in her early 30s, sweat darkening the collar of her t-shirt, hair pulled back in a messy braid. She watched Emily for a moment, then jogged over, kneeling beside her. "Hey, I'm Olivia," she said, voice steady, calm. "Looks like you could use a hand." Emily stared, relief and embarrassment mixing. She'd never felt more seen or more helpless. The air was thick with sirens, music from a distant street fair, the city's usual pulse. But here, it was just the three of them, and two dogs clinging to hope. Emily's memory flashed, that night years ago, the way she'd waited for her father to come back, the way no one had listened. Now, as Olivia studied Greta, her voice gentle, her hands sure, Emily felt the first flicker of hope in ages. Maybe this time things would be different. Maybe this time someone would stay. The city didn't care about desperate animals, even as the sun slid toward the horizon and the shadows in Grant Park grew long. Most people were too busy, too distracted, too unwilling to get involved. But for Emily, the world had shrunk to the patch of dirt under that rusted fence, to the desperate eyes of a German shepherd and her trembling pup. Olivia's presence brought a rush of something like hope, but it was tangled with anxiety. Olivia introduced herself again. "I'm Dr. Olivia Reyes, veterinarian. Let's take a look." She crouched, pulling a multi-tool from her fanny pack, moving with calm, practiced assurance. Emily's heart pounded as she watched Olivia try to lever up the fence. But Greta yelped, a raw, guttural sound, her body straining, blood streaking the grass. Olivia flinched, and so did Emily. Fear surged up inside her, an old, familiar wave. Emily wanted to run, to bolt from the chaos and the pain, just as she'd wanted to run so many times when things at home got hard. But Max wouldn't let go. The puppy tugged harder at her sleeve, teeth clenched tight but gentle. His eyes never left hers. That little dog believed in her with a trust that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Olivia looked up, brow furrowed. "She's really stuck. This fence, it's digging into her leg. We need more hands." Olivia scanned the park. "Can you get help?" Emily nodded, scrambling to her feet. She ran toward the nearest clump of people, a pair of teenagers with headphones, a man on his phone, a mom wrangling a stroller. She called out, "Please, can someone help? There's a dog trapped. She's bleeding, please." The words felt thick and foreign in her mouth. Some people didn't even look up. Others shot annoyed glances, shooing her away. One man just said, "Call animal control," and kept walking. Emily's cheeks burned. She felt invisible, powerless, like she was 10 years old again, begging her mother not to send her to her father's place after the divorce. She tried again. An older woman in gardening gloves, a jogger, a college student with a backpack. Each time rejection hit like a slap. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted to see. Emily spun in a circle, panic rising. She could just leave, pretend she'd never seen those dogs. Go home, tell herself someone else would handle it. That would be easier, that would be normal, but she couldn't. Not after seeing Greta's eyes. Not with Max's faith weighing on her. With trembling hands, she fumbled her phone out of her pocket. But her hands shook so badly she could barely tap the screen. She called her mother. "Mom," she pleaded, voice cracking. "There's a dog. She's trapped. She's bleeding. I need your help, please." On the other end, her mother's voice was sharp, exhausted, frayed at the edges from work and worry. "Emily, I can't. I have dinner on the stove and I'm tired. That's not your responsibility. Call someone else." The words landed with a dull thud. For a moment, Emily almost snapped, almost screamed that she needed her, for once, just this once. But all that came out was a defeated, "Okay." Her mother sighed. "Just come home, Em. You can't save every stray." The call ended. Emily stood still, blinking back tears, heart thudding with anger and shame and something harder, a determination she'd never felt before. She refused to let this be the end. She stuffed her phone in her pocket, marched inside their tiny apartment a few blocks away, ignoring her mom's questions. In her room, she grabbed the softest blanket she owned, a faded blue one from her childhood, the one she clung to on nights she missed her dad. She filled a water bottle, found a granola bar, stuffed everything into a tote bag, and bolted back down the stairs. If no one else would help, she'd do it herself. By the time she made it back to Grant Park, the sky had deepened to a burnt orange. Olivia was still there, crouched in the dust, hands slick with sweat and dirt. Greta lay limp, her breathing harsh but steady. Max pressed into her side. Emily knelt and offered the blanket. "It smells like me," she whispered to Greta, laying it gently over the dog's trembling back. She unscrewed the water bottle, letting Max lap at the edge while Greta stared, too tired even to move. Olivia smiled, just a flicker, but the gratitude in her eyes was real. "You came back," she said softly. Emily nodded, fighting the old fear. "I promised." For a few moments, it was just the three of them, and the dogs, caught in a bubble of quiet in the middle of a city that kept rushing past. Olivia glanced at Emily, her voice low and steady. "Most people turn away. I almost did once, but the first animal I ever rescued saved my life more than I saved his." The words hung in the air. Emily felt them settle into the cracks of her own heart. They worked in silence, Olivia soothing Greta, Emily keeping Max calm. Greta's eyes, once so wild, grew softer, more trusting, not yet defeated. Emily realized she'd never seen that kind of resilience before, that quiet refusal to give up. She squeezed Greta's paw gently. "You're not alone," she murmured. A hush fell, just as Emily started to believe they might save her. Greta's chest heaved, a sharp, panicked gasp, and her eyes rolled back. Olivia stiffened. "She's going into shock," she said, urgent. She rummaged in her bag, pulling out a syringe, hands moving fast but sure. Emily clung to Max, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. In that moment, as the sky faded from orange to indigo, Emily realized she was changing. The world might not care, but she did, and tonight she wasn't letting go. A soft evening wind swept through Grant Park, but Emily hardly felt it. All her senses zeroed in on the scene at her knees, Greta's sides rising and falling with desperate, shallow breaths. Max pressed into her body, and Olivia beside her, quietly radiating urgency and control. The distant city kept moving. Cars honked, laughter from a beer garden drifted on the air, sirens pulsed along the avenue. But for Emily, time had narrowed down to the circle of dirt beneath the battered fence. Olivia quickly assessed Greta's wound, voice low and steady. "She's lost a lot of blood. We can't pull her out too fast, or we'll do more damage." She glanced up, eyes searching Emily's. "Have you ever owned a dog?" Emily shook her head. "My mom never let me. She's scared of big dogs. And honestly, I am too." There was no judgment in Olivia's look, only empathy, edged with a tired kind of hope. "We all get scared. Sometimes that's the only sign we still care. Emily's hands shook as she knelt by Greta's head. She remembered that helplessness from childhood, the way she'd pressed herself into corners, wishing someone would come and fix what was broken. But now Greta was looking at her, trusting her, as if she was the only person left in the world who mattered. Olivia's multi-tool glinted in the fading sunlight. She pried at the fence post, careful, inch by inch. "Keep talking to her," Olivia instructed. Emily swallowed, then began. "Hey Greta, you're doing good. You're so strong. Max needs you, Her voice broke. "I need you too." Max whimpered, burrowing under Emily's arm. His fur was soft and hot, shaking like a heartbeat in her hands. For a moment, Emily wasn't just a scared girl anymore. She was someone's last hope. Olivia worked, sweat beading on her forehead. "I lost someone too," she murmured. "A few years back, I rescued a dog that had been abandoned in a snowstorm. Saving him gave me something to hold on to. Sometimes loving something means risking heartbreak." Emily blinked fast, throat tight. She wondered if that was what she'd always been afraid of: getting hurt, getting left, failing. Greta's breathing faltered, a stuttering gasp. Panic washed over Emily. "She's getting worse," she said, voice shaking. Olivia's eyes were steady, her hands gentle. "I know, but we're not giving up." She reached into her bag, pulling out a bottle of water and pouring a trickle into Greta's mouth. Some spilled out, darkening the dust. The fence finally gave a little. Olivia pressed her knee against it, leaning all her weight as Emily stroked Greta's side, whispering, "You're okay, girl. Just a little more." Time slowed. Every second stretched as if the world itself was holding its breath. Emily's mind replayed every moment she'd ever felt powerless. Her father's angry footsteps, the sound of her mom crying at night, that endless, empty ache. But this time she refused to look away. Finally, with a metallic screech, the fence bent enough for Olivia to slide Greta out. Greta's body collapsed in a heap. Legs splayed awkwardly. Blood oozed from the gash, staining the blue blanket. Olivia moved quickly, her voice gentle but commanding. "Hold Max," she told Emily, "and keep talking to Greta." Olivia tore open a medical kit, hands moving with swift precision. She cleaned the wound, staunched the bleeding, and prepared a syringe. Emily wrapped her arms around Max, cradling his trembling body. "She's gonna be okay, buddy," she whispered. "We're here. We're not going anywhere." Olivia injected Greta with a clear liquid. "It's pain medication and something to counteract shock," she explained. She rubbed Greta's ears, speaking softly. "Hang in there, girl. You're not alone anymore." For a few minutes, there was only silence. Heavy, uncertain, filled with the weight of waiting. Olivia took Emily's hand, squeezed it. "You did good, kid. Most people just keep walking." Emily looked away, tears slipping down her cheeks. "What if it's not enough? What if I let her down?" Olivia's answer was quiet but fierce. "You showed up. That's what matters. Most people never do." Greta's breathing was shallow but steadying. Emily watched, hardly daring to hope. Max licked her hand, his small body finally beginning to relax. Emily felt a jolt of connection. Raw, new, but real. Maybe, she thought, this is what family feels like. The city faded around them. The clatter of the elevated train, the neon glow in the distance, the smell of grass and sweat and fear. In its place was a fragile bubble of hope, built from the simple act of not turning away. Emily brushed the fur from Greta's eyes. "You're safe now, I promise." Olivia met her gaze, eyes shining. "We're not done yet. We need to get her to my clinic. But I think she has a chance." Greta's paw twitched, her ear flicked, and for the first time all day, she looked peaceful. Emily felt the knot in her chest loosen. For a second, she let herself believe they'd done it. That sometimes, just sometimes, a scared girl with nothing to offer but her heart could make a difference. And in that stillness, under the bruised summer sky, Emily made a vow, one she would carry long after the sirens faded and the city's noise crept back in. I'm not walking away. Not from you. Not from anyone. Night descended over Chicago with the kind of hush that only arrives after a city's long, boiling day. The streetlights flickered on, one by one, until Grant Park was cast in soft pools of yellow, interrupted only by the glare of passing cars and the distant blare of a siren. Olivia and Emily worked quickly, urgency in every motion, but a sense of unreality hovered, a breathless pause between disaster and hope. Greta, finally freed, lay limp on the torn blanket. Her fur clung to her bones. Her eyes, once glazed with pain, were now barely open, rolling back as her chest heaved. Olivia pressed a cool, practiced hand to Greta's ribs. "She's in shock," Olivia murmured, voice tight with professional concern. "We have to stabilize her before we even try to move her." Emily cradled Max, whispering, "You're safe. You're safe." Over and over. More for herself than for him. The little puppy's eyes were wide with confusion and terror, but his body trembled less in Emily's arms than on the cold grass. He pressed his nose under Emily's chin, desperate for reassurance, and Emily pressed back, holding him tightly, hoping her warmth could anchor them both. Olivia worked fast, pulling out her phone to order a rideshare. Her own car was blocks away, and Greta wouldn't survive the wait. "We'll get you to my clinic, sweetheart," Olivia promised softly, half to Greta, half to herself. She rummaged through her bag, pulling out an emergency syringe and a saline IV. With steady hands, she injected a dose into Greta's flank, murmuring, "Come on, girl, stay with us." Emily watched, fear pooling in her stomach. She remembered, in brutal clarity, the night her father left. Her mother silent, face closed off. Emily sitting alone with her blanket pulled up over her ears, wanting to disappear. Now, the same sense of helplessness pressed down on her, only heavier, because this time someone else depended on her. "Sometimes," Olivia said quietly, "loving something means risking heartbreak." Her words hung between them, charged with meaning. Emily blinked back tears. "I'm scared I'll fail her," she admitted, voice thin as thread. "Like, what if I mess up? What if I make it worse?" Olivia's eyes flickered up, warm and understanding. "You can't always save everyone, but you showed up. That's more than most." She squeezed Emily's shoulder, steady, grounding. Emily nodded, but the fear didn't leave. Greta's breathing grew shallower, her tongue dry and blue at the edges. Max whimpered, pawing at Emily's arm. Emily stroked his head, fighting to keep her own panic down. "Hang in there, Greta," she whispered. "Please, you have to make it." Time seemed to warp. Each minute stretched, the world shrinking to a circle of dim lamplight, the rhythm of Greta's breaths, the smell of blood and summer grass. Emily wished desperately for her mother's voice, her father's steady hands, anything familiar. But all she had was Max, trembling, and Olivia's tired, hopeful eyes. Olivia attached the IV, lifting Greta's paw and taping the line in place. "She needs fluids. This'll help if she can hold on." The rideshare was minutes away, but every second counted. Olivia wiped sweat from her brow. "Keep her talking, Em. Sometimes that's all you can do." Emily bent low, whispering stories she barely remembered, about the dog she'd always wanted, about nights she'd imagined running away to someplace safe and warm. She told Greta, "You're not alone, not now, not ever again." Her own voice surprised her, steadier than she felt, strong in a way she'd never known before. Max snuggled closer, finally sighing, his first sign of relief all night. Emily kissed the top of his head. "You're a good boy, Max. She's fighting for you, you know." Just then, Greta's chest hitched, a sharp, rattling gasp. Olivia's hands stilled. "Greta?" The name was barely a whisper, thick with hope and dread. Greta didn't move. For a terrifying heartbeat, it seemed like she'd slipped away. Emily's world stopped, suspended on the edge of despair. But then Greta's ear twitched, the smallest sign of life. Olivia exhaled shakily, reaching for the bandages. "She's still here," Olivia said, her voice fierce. "She's still fighting." The rideshare arrived, a tired sedan with a confused driver. Olivia explained in clipped, urgent tones. Together, they eased Greta onto the back seat. Max and Emily squeezed close on the floor. Olivia held Greta's IV above her, whispering encouragement the whole ride across the city. Emily's thoughts twisted in every direction. Fear, guilt, hope, and a fierce, unfamiliar sense of responsibility warred inside her. For the first time, she understood her mother's exhaustion, the weight of carrying someone else's pain. She thought of her father's absence, the ache he'd left behind. She wondered if she could ever be enough. Greta's breathing was still shallow, but her eyes, when she opened them, met Emily's for the first time. Emily smiled through her tears, squeezing Greta's paw. "You're not alone. I promise I won't let go." By the time they reached Olivia's clinic, the city had settled into a rare silence, the kind that only comes at midnight. Emily stepped out, carrying Max, following Olivia as she cradled Greta's fragile body inside. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered on, sharp and clinical. The world felt different here, cleaner, colder, but filled with possibility. Olivia moved fast, laying Greta on a metal table, barking orders to her assistant, prepping more fluids, oxygen, and medication. Emily hovered, heart in her throat, arms wrapped around Max. Olivia moved like a conductor, focused, tireless, refusing to accept defeat. And Emily, for the first time, let herself hope. Maybe showing up was enough. Maybe, just maybe, love could outlast fear. The automatic doors to Olivia's animal clinic slid open with a mechanical sigh, swallowing the night's muggy air and trading it for the crisp tang of antiseptic and cold tile. Olivia led the way, cradling Greta in her arms with astonishing strength. Emily followed, clutching Max against her chest. The puppy's heartbeat thundered beneath her fingers, fast, desperate, so alive it hurt. Inside, the fluorescent lights seemed harsh after the gloom of the car. An exhausted vet tech, Jake, a college student with a streak of purple in his hair, jumped up from behind the reception desk, eyes wide at the bloody bundle Olivia carried. He rushed to prepare a surgery table, pulling out gauze, saline, a heart monitor, oxygen. Emily watched, feeling like a child at the edge of a nightmare. "We need to stabilize her fast," Olivia ordered, her voice a steady current of authority and compassion. Jake nodded and got to work without question. Emily hovered near the door, Max wriggling in her arms, both of them lost in the storm of activity. Someone tried to usher her out. Jake, gently, apologetically. "Hey, kid, you can wait in the lobby. This is going to get pretty intense." But Olivia shook her head. "She stays." Her gaze met Emily's, soft but unyielding. "She's part of this. She helps keep Greta calm." Emily exhaled, relief flooding her. She set Max down on a towel, and the little dog refused to leave Greta's side. He planted his paws on the metal table, licking Greta's muzzle as Jake shaved around the wound and attached electrodes to monitor her weak heartbeat. Greta's pulse was faint, thready, the monitor beeping an uneven rhythm. Olivia cleaned the gash, her hands gentle but swift. "Hang in there, girl. You've made it this far." The tension in the room was palpable, as if every second stretched tight enough to snap. Emily pressed her fists to her chest, guilt twisting inside her. All her old failures paraded through her mind. The times she hadn't spoken up, the moments she'd let fear win, all the years she'd told herself she didn't matter. She wanted to say something, to help, but her voice stuck in her throat. Instead, she reached out, brushing Greta's fur with trembling fingers, whispering, "You're not alone. Please don't leave him. Don't leave us." Olivia glanced at her, seeing the battle playing out inside. "Emily, you didn't let her down. You're here, that's what matters." Jake administered pain meds and fluids. Olivia checked Greta's gums, her breathing, her eyes. Minutes dragged into hours. Emily felt her own exhaustion mount, eyelids heavy, mind looping with worry. She wondered if this was what her mother felt, fighting every day, carrying so much weight, and never feeling like it was enough. Olivia looked tired too, her professional mask slipping. "I see a lot of cruelty," she said quietly, not looking up from her work. "Abandonment, neglect. But I also see moments like this. People who step up, who care. It's what keeps me going." She pressed her palm against Greta's side, feeling for the faint pulse. "I see a lot of myself in you." Emily met her gaze, startled. "Me? How?" Olivia shrugged, eyes distant. "When I was your age, I was lost. Hurt. I thought nobody would ever notice if I disappeared. But then I found a dog, left for dead. Saving her gave me purpose, showed me I could change something, even if it was just for one soul." Emily nodded, emotion catching in her chest. For the first time, she didn't feel alone in her pain. The monitor beeped, skipping a beat. Greta's breathing faltered. Olivia's calm shattered. Her heart rate's dropping. She's crashing. She grabbed adrenaline, injected it, called for Jake to start chest compressions. Emily clung to Max, the puppy's eyes huge with terror, his yelps echoing around the sterile room. Everything happened at once. Olivia's orders, Jake's frantic movements, the rising pitch of the monitor. Emily's vision blurred, the world narrowing to the rhythm of Greta's heart. On the screen, then not, then flickering back in fits and starts. "Come on, Greta, stay with me." Olivia's voice cracked, fierce and desperate. She fought for every second, refusing to give in. Emily squeezed Max, her own prayers silent, raw. She remembered her father's absence, her mother's exhaustion, the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wishing for someone to fight for her. She never imagined she'd be the one fighting for someone else. For an eternity, maybe a minute, maybe 10, the clinic was filled with nothing but alarms and pleading voices. Emily's heart hammered in her chest, fear and hope entwined so tightly they were impossible to separate. Finally, Greta's heart gave a weak, steady beep. Then another, and another. The monitor stabilized, quieting to a fragile but regular rhythm. Olivia sagged with relief, wiping her forehead. "She's not out of the woods, but she's got a fighting chance," she murmured. Emily burst into tears, not caring who saw. Max licked her cheek, whining softly. Olivia leaned against the table, eyes shining with exhaustion and hope. "You did good, Emily. You both did." The adrenaline drained away, replaced by a quiet, trembling peace. Emily realized she'd crossed a line, stepped from being a bystander to being part of the fight. She looked down at Greta and Max, and for the first time in a long time, she believed she could make a difference. In the silent hours that followed, as the city slept, Emily kept vigil by Greta's side. She whispered stories, stroked Max's fur, and promised them over and over that they'd never be alone again. Time dissolved inside Olivia's clinic. The harsh lights glowed against white walls, casting long shadows over the small, crowded room. It felt as if the world outside had fallen away. No more traffic, no city noise, just the sound of the monitor and the quiet breathing of people who refused to give up. Emily sat cross-legged on a vinyl chair next to the metal table where Greta rested. She'd lost track of the hours, her phone forgotten in her bag, its battery long dead. She watched Greta's chest, counting each fragile rise and fall, every shallow breath a fragile miracle. Max sprawled in her lap, head heavy and limp, eyes closing and opening in slow blinks. Emily stroked his fur, letting his warmth ground her. Jake moved in and out, checking Greta's IV, adjusting the monitor, whispering words of encouragement to Olivia. But mostly, it was silence, the kind of silence that holds its breath, afraid to disturb hope before it's fully formed. To keep herself from spiraling into panic, Emily pulled a crumpled scrap of paper from her pocket and a dull pencil from her backpack. She began to sketch. First Max, his floppy ears and earnest eyes, then Greta, stretched out in sleep, the lines shaky but full of love. The act of drawing steadied her hands, quieted her mind. She wrote little captions. Brave Max, strong mama. The paper became a tiny testament to the night's struggle, a memory she could keep no matter what happened next. Across the table, Olivia watched, eyes softening. She smiled, her own exhaustion etched deep in her face. "You're an artist, huh?" Olivia asked quietly, careful not to break the hush. Emily shrugged. "Not really. It just helps when things are too big to say out loud." Olivia nodded, understanding. "I used to draw too. When I was your age, I'd fill notebooks with pictures of animals I wanted to save. It made me feel like I had control, like I could make something right in a world that wasn't." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Did it help?" "Sometimes," Olivia said, her voice cracking just a little. "Sometimes it was all I had." The monitor beeped, louder this time. Greta's paw twitched. Olivia's head snapped up. Emily held her breath. Slowly, as if rising from a dream, Greta stretched her leg, her eyes fluttering open. She turned her head, seeking Emily's hand. When her tongue flicked out, dry but hopeful, and licked Emily's knuckles, it felt like sunlight after a long storm. "She's waking up," Jake whispered, disbelief and joy tangled in his voice. Emily's heart soared. She stroked Greta's ears, tears spilling over. "You did it, girl. You're here." Max, sensing the shift, sprang to his feet, paws tapping at Greta's face. He licked her ear, whimpering with joy. Greta, still groggy, nuzzled her pup weakly, the barest hint of a tail wag fluttering behind her. Olivia leaned against the counter, wiping her eyes with the heel of her hand. "That's a miracle," she breathed. "I've seen animals come back before, but rarely from so far gone. She must really love you." Emily squeezed Greta's paw, a sense of strength blooming in her chest. "Maybe she just didn't want to give up on us." She smiled through her tears, realizing the words were true for herself, too. In the afterglow of relief, Olivia took a seat next to Emily. Her mask of professionalism slipped away, replaced by something more vulnerable, more human. "Greta reminds me of the dog I rescued as a teenager," Olivia said. "I was lost, depressed, but saving her gave me a reason to keep fighting. Sometimes, you need someone to save you as much as you need to save them." Emily looked at her, really looked and saw not just a veterinarian, but a person with wounds and hope and courage. "You never left her behind, did you?" Olivia shook her head. "No, and I never will. That's the promise we make, the one that changes everything." Emily's resolve hardened. She turned to Greta, to Max, to Olivia. "I won't leave them. Not ever." As dawn crept into the city, painting the world in soft gold, Greta found the strength to stand. The team cheered quietly, not wanting to startle her. Emily and Max hugged her neck, laughter and tears mingling in the fragile morning light. Olivia's voice was thick with emotion. "You're a part of this family now, Emily. You and your dogs. We don't let go of each other, not here." The rest of the day was a blur. Calls to donors, cleaning up bloodstains, feeding Max scraps from the clinic fridge. Emily stayed by Greta's side, singing quietly, promising over and over that she was safe. She believed it, deep down, for the first time in her life. She could change her story. She wasn't helpless. She had the power to show up, to stay. By afternoon, Olivia placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "I'm proud of you. Not just for what you did tonight, but for who you are." Emily smiled, blinking back fresh tears. "Thank you, Olivia, for everything." And as the city woke and the world moved on, Emily vowed to never let Greta and Max be alone again. Together, they'd survived the night, and together, they'd face whatever came next. By the following morning, the sky was an endless blue, sunlight flooding the clinic's recovery room. Greta, her head bandaged, fur cleaned and brushed, slept curled up on a soft bed with Max pressed tight against her belly. Emily, bleary-eyed and wrinkled from spending the night on a bench, was still there when Olivia bustled in, phone already chiming with messages. Olivia glanced at the two dogs and then at Emily. She hesitated, as if weighing a decision, then asked, "Would you mind if I shared their story? I think the world could use a little hope right now." Emily nodded, unsure what it might mean, but wanting to trust. Olivia knelt by Greta, snapping a gentle photo, one that captured not just the wounds, but also the fierce, protective way Greta held Max and the quiet tenderness of Emily's hand on Greta's neck. Within an hour, Olivia's post was live on social media. A simple caption, "Mother dog and her pup, abandoned and injured in Grant Park, saved by a stranger's courage." She tagged the animal clinic and, with Emily's permission, included her first name. Then Olivia set her phone aside, neither expecting nor wanting much, just to share a little light in the darkness. But hope has a way of growing faster than anyone expects. The post was shared dozens of times within the hour, then hundreds, then thousands. Comments flooded in, some from local animal lovers offering to donate, others from strangers moved by the story of a battered dog who had refused to let go, and the young girl who'd risked her heart to save her. By noon, a news van idled outside the clinic, and a reporter with bright lipstick and a kind smile interviewed Emily and Olivia. Emily stumbled over her answers, cheeks burning, but she was honest about her fear, her hope, and the reason she stayed, because someone has to. Jake joked that they'd have to hire a receptionist just to answer the phone. Messages poured in, offers to foster, to donate supplies, to help pay Greta's medical bills. The clinic's small fridge overflowed with home-cooked meals dropped off by neighbors. Max and Greta became local celebrities, their story headlining the city's morning news. Soon, Olivia noticed something deeper shifting. The same park where bystanders had turned away now hosted food drives and fundraisers. Children left toys for Max and Greta at the clinic door. The hashtag #HopeForGreta began to trend nationwide, complete with art, poetry, even a mural outside the park fence where Greta had been trapped. People wrote that Greta was a hero mother, that her scars were proof of courage, not shame, Emily wandered the clinic in awe. She read messages aloud to Greta and Max. "You're loved, you're safe now," and "Thank you, Emily, for not turning away." Every word felt like a balm, soothing wounds both old and new. But it wasn't just the dogs who were changing. For the first time, Emily saw her own story reflected back at her. Not as the quiet, invisible girl who kept her head down, but as someone brave, someone who mattered. She found herself smiling more, shoulders straightening. The fear wasn't gone, but hope had taken root. Olivia sat with Emily during a lull, her face gentler than usual. "How does it feel, knowing all these people care?" Emily shook her head, overwhelmed. "I didn't think anyone would. I thought we'd just get ignored again." Olivia squeezed her hand. "People want to care, Em. Sometimes they just need someone to show them how. You did that." One afternoon, a little girl with thick glasses and pigtails came in, clutching a hand-drawn card. She pressed it into Emily's palm, a scribbly drawing of Greta, Max, and Emily standing under a banner that read "Family." The girl's mom wiped tears from her eyes as she thanked Emily, saying, "You made us all believe in kindness again." The story rippled outward. The mayor sent a letter of gratitude. Animal shelters reported an uptick in volunteers and adoptions. The world, it seemed, was a little softer, a little more awake to pain and the possibility of healing. Emily found herself walking taller. She even caught her mother reading online comments, her face softened by pride and something like regret. For the first time, they talked about things that hurt and the things they hoped for. Through it all, Greta and Max flourished. Greta's limp faded as her wounds healed. Max's shyness disappeared, replaced by a boisterous playfulness that filled the clinic with laughter. The two dogs became the heartbeat of the clinic, living proof of what can happen when someone refuses to look away. And for Emily, it became clear. A single act of courage doesn't just change one life. It can change a whole community, and sometimes a world. For the first time in her life, Emily felt that she was part of something bigger than her pain. She was part of a movement, one that started with a whimper and a cry for help, and grew into a wave of hope. The days that followed felt unreal, almost enchanted. The little animal clinic that once struggled for attention had become a hub of hope, brimming with volunteers, donated supplies, and warm food brought by people from all over the city. Strangers stopped by just to peek in at Greta and Max to say thank you, or to drop off a note for Emily. The clinic, for the first time, felt less like a place of rescue and more like a place where people and animals found something they'd been missing for a long time: belonging. Emily's mother, Andrea, watched it all from a distance at first. She'd come to pick Emily up each evening, waiting by the door, hesitant, her hands twisting the strap of her purse. She was proud. Emily could see it in the way her eyes lingered. But there was also something else, a kind of yearning or regret that kept her from stepping inside. Sometimes Andrea would make an excuse: "I've got dinner on the stove," or "I don't want to get in the way." But Emily noticed she always arrived earlier, always found some reason to linger on the sidewalk. One evening, as the golden sunset pooled on the clinic's floor, Olivia called Andrea inside. "Stay for dinner. We have more than enough, and it's been a long day." Andrea hesitated, but Olivia was persistent, waving away her polite refusals. Greta, sensing something gentle in Andrea's uncertainty, hobbled over and rested her chin on Andrea's knee, tail wagging faintly. Max quickly followed, nuzzling Andrea's hand. In that moment, Andrea's face softened, her posture uncoiling as if she'd set down a burden she'd carried for years. Over pizza and laughter, the four of them, Olivia, Emily, Andrea, and Jake, shared stories about stubborn animals and difficult days. Olivia's eyes sparkled as she described the clinic's earliest rescues. Jake showed off photos of cats who'd become social media stars. Even Andrea, shy at first, found herself laughing at Max's antics as he tumbled off his blanket in pursuit of a rolling carrot. As days melted into weeks, the rhythm of this new family formed. Emily and Andrea started coming in early to help walk the dogs, clean cages, and check in on patients. Olivia was patient with Andrea's nerves, gentle in her invitations for her to stay. Andrea confessed to Olivia one evening, "I was always afraid of big dogs. I thought they were dangerous. But now I think I just didn't understand them." Olivia smiled. Sometimes the things we fear most are just the things we haven't had the chance to love yet. The simple work, washing bowls, folding towels, talking softly to anxious animals, became a kind of therapy for Andrea and Emily. Greta and Max, healed and vibrant, seemed to thrive with each day. Greta became the gentle matriarch of the clinic, comforting nervous new arrivals and keeping Max in line when his puppy energy threatened to overwhelm the waiting room. One quiet afternoon, Emily sat in the tiny staff room, pen poised over a piece of paper. She'd been thinking about her father more often, about the silence he'd left behind, and the emptiness that once shaped every room in their apartment. She wrote him a letter, not to send, but to release what she'd carried for years. "Dad, I forgive you. I forgive me too. I know now that sometimes people run away from pain because they don't know how to stay. I used to think I was the problem, but I see now it's not that simple. I hope you found peace wherever you are." She tucked the letter away in her journal, feeling lighter than she had in years. That evening, Olivia made an announcement over dinner, her eyes shining with excitement. "We're starting something new. I've filed the paperwork for a nonprofit, a rescue called the Greta Project. We'll take in dogs like Greta and people who need second chances too. And I want you all to be a part of it." Emily's heart thudded with pride and disbelief. "Really?" Olivia nodded. "Really, you're family now. Greta and Max, too. This project is about more than saving animals. It's about healing people, about giving all of us a place to belong." Andrea squeezed Olivia's hand, emotion flickering in her eyes. "Thank you. I wish I'd learned sooner how important this is, not just for Emily, but for me." That night, as the city lights glimmered through the clinic windows, Emily sat between Greta and Max, her mother at her side. She felt something she'd longed for her entire life, a sense of home that wasn't tied to a place but to the people and creatures around her. Greta's head rested in her lap, Max curled up by her feet. Olivia sat nearby, working late, but humming softly, a sound that felt like comfort and promise. Emily whispered to the dogs, "We're not alone anymore. This is our family now." Greta sighed contentedly, eyes closing, as if she understood. Outside, the world kept spinning, but inside the clinic, hope was a living, breathing thing. The wounds of the past weren't erased, but they were tended, shared, and seen. And with every gentle touch, every word of forgiveness, and every act of care, a new kind of family grew, one built not on blood, but on the brave decision to show up, to love, and to stay. As summer drifted into early fall, the air grew crisper, the trees in Grant Park painting the city with streaks of gold and red. The clinic was busier than ever, buzzing with the energy of second chances, rescued strays, volunteers eager to help, and visitors who just wanted to be close to the hope that radiated from Greta, Max, and their little patchwork family. Yet beneath the everyday bustle, deeper questions lingered, Questions about why Greta and Max were ever abandoned in the first place, why so many people walked by that night, and what it meant to truly choose compassion in a world that too often looks away. One evening, as the last patient left and the clinic's lights softened, Olivia sat with Emily at the old wooden table in the staff room. Greta and Max slept nearby, curled up together, the image of peace after chaos. Andrea was washing dishes, humming quietly. The warmth of family, however unlikely, was thick in the air. Olivia sipped her tea, eyes distant but thoughtful. "You ever wonder why people ignored Greta and Max?" she asked softly. Emily hesitated. "Sometimes. I get it. Everyone's busy, everyone's tired, but I keep thinking, if it hadn't been us, would anyone else have stopped?" Olivia nodded. "It's hard for people to look pain in the eye, Em. It reminds them of their own. Sometimes ignoring suffering feels easier than facing it. But the truth is, every time we turn away, we reinforce the idea that kindness is optional, that compassion is a luxury, not a necessity." Emily sat with that for a moment, tracing the rim of her mug. But what makes someone actually stop? Why did we when others didn't? Olivia smiled gently. Courage, maybe. Or maybe just being tired of pretending we don't care. Vulnerability is scary, but it's also what makes us human. It's what makes us brave. You saw someone hurting, and instead of numbing yourself, you chose to feel. That takes guts. The conversation turned inward, peeling back layers that had been protected for too long. Andrea joined them, drying her hands, listening. She admitted in a rare moment of openness, "For so long, I taught myself to look away from hard things. I thought if I ignored them, maybe they'd go away, or at least not hurt as much. But I see now, all I was doing was carrying that pain alone, and passing it on, without even realizing it." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She thought of the night her father left, of years she'd spent believing she was somehow to blame. She saw now how cycles of abandonment and silence shaped more than just one moment. They echoed through families, through generations, shaping how people learn to trust or turn away. "But you broke the cycle," Olivia said softly. "You showed up and you didn't run. And that changed everything, for Greta, for Max, for your mom, and for yourself." Emily wiped her eyes, her voice firmer than before. "I used to think showing emotion was weakness, but now I know it's the thing that helps you survive. Greta's scars aren't shameful. They're proof she made it through." Olivia nodded. "That's right. Vulnerability isn't a flaw, Em. It's a gift. It's what lets us connect, what lets us heal. Animals know that better than anyone." Their talk drifted to the future, the Greta Project, its purpose and promise. Olivia explained, "It isn't just about rescuing dogs. It's about building a community that refuses to look away. It's about giving people a chance to heal, too, by helping them realize they're not alone with their pain." As they talked, a crowd gathered outside. The grand opening of the Greta Project was about to begin. People from all walks of life stood beneath a banner covered in paw prints and handprints. News cameras, city officials, families, children clutching stuffed animals, and volunteers who had once been strangers, all joined by the bond of hope. Olivia took the microphone, voice trembling with gratitude. "Every act of kindness ripples outward, touching lives we may never know. We started with 2 dogs and a handful of stubborn hearts. Now look at what we've built together. A family, a movement, a promise." Emily stepped up, heart pounding, and addressed the crowd. "One small voice can change everything," she said. "It doesn't matter how scared you are, or how small you feel. What matters is that you don't walk away." Greta and Max needed help. and they changed all of us, just by surviving. Andrea joined her, squeezing Emily's hand. The applause was warm, honest, full of something deeper than celebration. A collective vow to keep showing up, to keep believing that one person, one moment, could turn indifference into action. As the crowd cheered, Olivia and Emily embraced. They were changed, scarred maybe, but stronger for it. Each person there, whether they knew it or not, had made a choice to see, to care, and to stay. And as the sun set over Grant Park, the legacy of Greta, Max, and the people who refused to look away was just beginning. The chill of autumn settled gently over Chicago, swirling through Grant Park in the early mornings and dusting the leaves with gold. For Emily, Andrea, Olivia, Greta, and Max, life moved forward in ways that felt both quietly miraculous and entirely ordinary. In the heart of it all, the Greta Project flourished, an ever-expanding circle of hope that began with a desperate whimper and a single act of courage. On the day of the official opening, the clinic buzzed with energy. Balloons floated by the door, children's laughter rang out, and volunteers bustled in and out carrying treats, food, and supplies for the new shelter dogs. The air was alive with stories. Each person, each animal, another thread in the tapestry of healing that wove through this new family. In the center of it all stood Greta, now strong and regal, her fur thick and glossy, the scars on her leg faded but visible, a badge of survival. Max darted around her, impossibly energetic, his playful yips echoing through the clinic. Emily ran with them in the park's open field, her laughter ringing out, free and full. Andrea and Olivia watched from a picnic bench nearby, sipping coffee, the lines of worry on their faces softened by pride. Olivia had commissioned a small bronze plaque to be installed at the edge of the park, right where the old fence once trapped Greta. The inscription read, "Be the miracle someone's waiting for." The ceremony was simple but powerful. People gathered, sharing their own stories of heartbreak, of showing up when it mattered most, of being changed by kindness they never expected. There were tears and laughter, hands held tight, dogs and children weaving through the legs of the crowd. It was noisy, imperfect, and beautiful. Emily stood beside Greta, her hand resting on the shepherd's head as Olivia addressed the crowd. "We don't have to save the whole world," Olivia said, her voice steady and clear. "But we can refuse to look away. We can start small, right here. Show up for someone, human or animal. That's how hope begins." Andrea, her voice trembling, added, "I used to believe I was too broken to help anyone else. But what I've learned is that sometimes healing comes not from fixing others, but from loving them exactly as they are and letting them love you back." The story of Greta and Max became a living legacy, a reminder that true empathy isn't passive. It's a choice, a commitment to act, to witness, to stay when it's easier to leave. The Greta Project didn't just rescue dogs. It became a place where people found belonging, where old wounds were tended alongside new ones, and where the act of caring multiplied far beyond what any of them could have imagined. In the weeks that followed, Emily found herself invited to classrooms and community events, telling their story. Each time she spoke not just about the night in Grant Park, but about the way courage and compassion ripple outward. It doesn't matter if you're scared, or if you don't know what to do. What matters is that you don't walk away. Even a small act, just showing up, can change everything for someone who's lost hope. Listeners left inspired, often in tears, determined to show up in their own lives. Animal adoptions soared, and new volunteers arrived at the clinic every week. Strangers became friends, neighbors began to check in on each other, and the city itself seemed to breathe a little easier. But the deepest changes were the quietest. The morning routines in the apartment Emily now shared with her mom, the gentle rituals of walking Greta and Max, the laughter that echoed at dinner. The past was still there, with its losses and aches, but it no longer defined them. Instead, what mattered most were the new bonds of trust, forgiveness, and a shared promise never to let each other go. On a golden afternoon, Emily, Greta, Max, and Olivia gathered beneath the plaque. They stood in silence, letting the wind carry away the last vestiges of fear and loneliness. Olivia turned to Emily, her voice soft but certain. "You know, families aren't just something you're born into. They're something you choose every day. Healing happens when we choose to belong to each other, even when it's hard." Emily smiled, her eyes shining with the kind of peace she'd thought she'd never feel. She knelt beside Greta, hugging her close, Max leaping into the pile, barking his delight. For a moment, the world felt whole. The camera of the imagination pans out, capturing the family, flawed but brave, scarred but hopeful, bathed in the warm light of late afternoon. The lesson lingers. You don't have to be perfect to be the miracle someone needs. You just have to show up. To the listeners, the narrator offers a final invitation. You don't need to save the world to make a difference. Start with one act of kindness. Refuse to look away. Let your courage become the hope someone else is searching for. Show up, and watch how hope multiplies. As the sun sets over Grant Park, Greta, Max, Emily, and Olivia walk into the golden light. Living proof that healing is possible, families are chosen, and hope, when shared, can truly change the world.